Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Running the Gauntlet here in Marvel's Ultimate Alliance 3. Today, we are looking at the second quest in the third and final phase of the Gauntlets in the third DLC expansion, Shadow of Doom, and this will be the level 220 Cosmic Catastrophe Gauntlet run. This one is a very trying set of challenges, but we are going to go over what each individual segment of the gauntlet entails, give you a couple of warnings of what to expect, and also make sure you know what it takes to get the full clear rewards. So let's jump into it, shall we? The first gauntlet run gives you about a minute and 40 seconds where you will first need to make your way through this laser grid. I have found that characters that have double jumps, teleportation, and occasionally flight tend to do well with this specific part of the laser grid. As you saw, Thanos Infinite tends to get a little bit easier of a time going through things than other characters may. We also take some time to take out some of these enemies because we need to assure that we are not going to run out of time. You can gloss over a couple of them, or you don't need to focus on taking every single opponent down, but you definitely want to replenish some of the time up to your meter where you can. Now, continuing forward, we'll see that there is a hazard device as well as a couple of opponents that have enhancements, but we will want to make sure that we take a second and focus down that hazard device before moving on, not because it will impede us, but because there is a definite benefit from taking it down, which we'll touch on a little bit later. I did gloss over it this time around, but as a general rule, you do want to focus on removing that hazard device, as it's very important for some of your clear conditions here. We'll want to do something similar with this hazard device here, and you'll see that it goes down with a couple of well-timed attacks from Thanos Infinite, as well as a couple of other haphazard hits coming in from other members of our team. We're doing a little bit better on time, so we can forge right on ahead into the next little segment, which is going to involve a few more enemies. At this stage, I'm zipping past them, mainly because I'm feeling pretty confident on the time that we have to finish things out here. And now that we've got a couple of enemies all localized, we can take them out all in one fell swoop, and that'll provide us a solid chunk of time back to our time that we have to finish this out. I take a moment to grab this missile from the fallen enemy to take out that hazard device in one fell swoop, and this is where the fight gets real, as there are only a few enemies that are left, them being Phoenix and Cyclops initially right off the bat here. And upon removing one of them, you will trigger the third boss of this section, which is going to be Cable. But because of these hazard devices that are hanging out in the background, you're going to want to take those down before focusing too much on Phoenix and Cyclops, because you're not going to really be able to get in any decent hits without doing that first. So you see that we do focus on taking out the hazard device with a couple of heavy attacks there. Thanos Infinite's heavy attack does auto-target onto some people, which can be a little bit frustrating. And now you'll see that we are unleashing a couple of our extreme attacks onto these enemies around here. And Phoenix should go down first, and Cyclops is not too far behind, but now we have Cable coming in from the back side of the arena. And we should be able to take out Cyclops, or very nearly take out Cyclops, by the time Cable pops up into the fight. And now we can focus on taking him down. You do get an additional 40 seconds on your timer for defeating either Phoenix or Cyclops, so you'll be pretty good on time once you've had a chance to get in on these characters here. Cable's just about done. I'm going to switch over to a couple other members of my team, throw in a few synergy attacks, and he's going to go down pretty easy there. Which allows us to talk about the second section of this gauntlet, which I think is underestimated in terms of its difficulty a little bit, because you've got a couple of standard grunt-type enemies here with these different Hulks, but you also have the mini-boss that we'll need to take down as well. And that can certainly be misleading when it comes to defeating these opponents, especially when all four of them decide that they're going to do a charge attack just like that. And we really want to make sure we get through him as quickly as possible, because as soon as you defeat the main boss character here, you will be freed from the other mini-bosses and be allowed to progress into the next section. The next section is identical to the previous, except with the adjustment of, instead of it being Hulk, we are facing Thor and a couple of his clones. Thor can be annoying with the lightning attacks that he has that tends to stagger out members of your team, but at the same time, I think that he is the easiest member of this 3-boss rush run here, to be sure. And that's because Hulk hits really hard and has large area of effect type attacks. And then this last section is the same concept but with Ghost Rider. And when you have 5 different versions of Ghost Rider running around the arena, and multiples of them decide to use motorbikes all in quick succession, it's not a very fun time. So you'll see that we circumnavigate that by using our extreme attacks, healing up the squad, and taking out the main Ghost Rider opponent. Which you're really going to want to make sure that you are healthy going into the 3rd section of this gauntlet, because I believe this section is the run killer. And it's because we are facing off against multiple versions of the Red Skull, who drops the enhanced ISO, but also an infected version of the Destroyer armor. And because of that infection, if you spend too much time close to him, you will pick up the infection attribute to yourself, and you'll just see your teammates' health drain over the course of this fight. You're seeing Miles Morales' health just whittling away, Wolverine's doing the same thing, and Thanos is staying up on things even with that infection, but it's because I'm controlling him and using attacks that are going to give us a lot of damage output here. And I switch over to Miles to try and bolster his health a little bit, roll him out of the way of this larger attack, as even though I was doing some good things with him, he didn't have that Rainbow ISO 8 crystal enhancement. And you're actually going to see that Miles, as I lay into the Destroyer with a couple more attacks here, he will go down periodically, or here in just a few moments, because of the lack of ability to keep him healthy. So as long as you can cycle through the members of your team, strategically lay your synergies into the Destroyer as you are fighting off against him, and focusing on doing so when you have the Rainbow ISO 8 enhancements, you're going to be able to get through these opponents pretty well. But let's touch on the different clear conditions here, because the main difficulty is actually just making sure you're familiar with these sections, but you should be able to get a good grip on things with this fight once you're familiar with how it's meant to work for you. The first clear condition is going to be clearing the gauntlet once. That's pretty straightforward, as long as you're aware of what you're walking into and can plan accordingly by either bringing a strong enough team or counterbalancing the opponents that you have. You also have to get a score of 300,000 or more, which you're honestly just going to want to run the gauntlet enough times till you hit that number. Upon hitting that clear condition, you will get an alternate costume for the Human Torch, which is really cool. Defeating or destroying 10 or more hazard devices you can do by running the gauntlet twice, as all of the hazard devices are in that first section of the gauntlet, and if you do take them all down, there is a total of 10. And then defeating 20 bosses, again, you'll need to run the gauntlet twice and then a few extra runs, but you won't have to do this last section multiple times, which is helpful because this last section is quite a bit of a doozy. Of course, it is the fight against the Celestial, and the added difficulty to this fight is everyone's dealing increased damage, which is good for you because it means that these rockets that you're throwing over at the Celestial are going to do a lot of damage and taking him down and going to speed this fight up quite a lot. I unfortunately detonated Black Panther's extreme ability there a little bit too early and farther away from the fight than I really needed to. Miles was at a low health spot as well and got caught in that blast coming across from the Celestial. And at this stage, we're really just trying to make sure that we can keep our heads on straight. And we do manage to get away from those rainbow swirls there. We actually have Wolverine that's gone down here as well. You've got, I believe it's 6 revives over the course of this mission. Of course, I have a skill tree that allows me a 1 extra revive per mission. And this is what's really kind of nasty about this fight. And Thanos Infinite, he's not looking good at all, but I do manage to keep him on his feet. Now at this stage, you will notice that the Celestial has all of these particles coming in around him. That means that he's going to heal himself up unless you use one of these heal reversal crystals from those insectoid enemies that popped in a few minutes ago. And you see that there was a very large percentage of his health, probably 50 to 60%, that just melted away at the end of his animation since he was under the effect of that crystal. And at this stage, we're just about done. We just need to throw out a couple of final rockets in his general direction, and we'll have them taken down. Black Panther's gone down. I'm not too concerned about that, because at this stage, even though it's been a rough section, I was able to loop back around and finish out this quest one more time and then start into a third run to hit those 3 clear conditions. But I hope that gives you a general overview of what you're looking for when taking on this challenge. It is one of the more difficult gauntlets out there, but not the most difficult, as I feel like one of those we have seen previously, and we've got more content coming that's going to really try us in terms of the gauntlet content. But thanks again for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, please feel free to leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe for more daily videos, and we will see you in the next one. Until then, take care and have a great rest of your day.